Trump declares a truce, but panic and bloodshed continue in Israel, with people still running for shelter as rockets, sirens, and fresh clashes undermine any sense of real calm on the ground. Just after Trump's announcement, new missile hits caused Israeli casualties, showing that fighters on the front lines are not laying down their arms simply because Washington has called for a pause. Iran is now threatening to bomb Tel Aviv if Bibi does not halt the Lebanon war, turning the ceasefire window into a high-stakes standoff over Israel's northern front. Netanyahu, however, seems unwilling to let Trump's two-week truce last even a single day, pressing on with operations that risk reigniting full-scale fighting before the ink on the announcement is even dry. Soon after the announcement of a two-week ceasefire, Israel alleged fresh missile attacks, saying that Iranian launches had continued even as the truce window officially opened. Several Israelis were reportedly hurt in fresh Iranian strikes on the night of April 7th to 8th, according to the Times of Israel, with new barrages targeting communities in southern Israel. 3 teenagers were lightly injured in Tel Sheva after Iran targeted southern Israel, with the latest missile salvo sending shrapnel and debris through the Bedouin town streets. 2 15-year-old boys were hurt in the blast from an alleged cluster submunition, suffering minor wounds as bomblets from the Iranian warhead detonated close to where they were standing. A 12-year-old boy was also hurt by the blast and flying glass shards in the same attack, according to reports, adding to the toll on children caught in Iran's latest missile strikes. Israeli medics said several other people were treated for acute anxiety after the explosions, highlighting the psychological trauma these repeated attacks are inflicting on civilians. Another cluster bomblet impact caused damage in Beersheba, as per the Times of Israel, with buildings and vehicles hit as fragments from the warhead scattered across the area. Meanwhile, on April 8th, Iran threatened to attack Israel's largest city, Tel Aviv, warning it could become a direct target if the current escalation continues. Iran's threat came after Israel refused to stop the Lebanon war, insisting that its offensive there is not part of the two-week truce framework and will continue despite ceasefire talks. According to Israeli officials, Iran fired 2 to 3 distinct waves of missiles since Trump announced the ceasefire, suggesting that launches continued even after Washington's declaration. The Israeli military said some of the incoming Iranian missiles were successfully intercepted by its air defense systems, according to accounts carried by local media. The IDF also claimed that a number of those missiles were equipped with deadly cluster warheads, designed to break up in mid-air and scatter bomblets over wide urban areas. One ballistic missile attack targeting southern Israel triggered warning sirens across the region, as residents were urged to seek immediate shelter. That particular missile aimed at the south was later intercepted before impact, and authorities reported no injuries in that incident. Soon after, Iran launched additional missiles towards central and northern Israel, according to the IDF, broadening the scope of the latest barrage. Impacts were reported in central Israel, possibly caused by cluster submunitions or falling fragments from intercepted missiles, leading to multiple scattered impact sites. Rescue teams rushed to the areas where debris fell, though initial reports indicated there were no immediate casualties, only material damage. Subsequently, sirens sounded yet again in southern Israel as fresh missiles were detected and tracked inbound, keeping large parts of the country on edge. Confusion over the timing of the ceasefire between the US and Iran led to continued attacks on April 8th, as forces on the ground were unsure when they were meant to halt fire. The US and Iran did not immediately and clearly specify the exact moment the truce was supposed to take effect, creating a dangerous gray zone in which missiles and strikes continued despite the announced agreement. In Bahrain, authorities said defense teams managed to extinguish a fire at an energy facility after an Iranian attack, as crews worked through the night to contain the blaze and assess the damage. Meanwhile, Qatar reported incidents where debris from intercepted Iranian missiles injured 4 people, including a child, after fragments fell on a home in the Murayk area, according to officials. In Kuwait and the UAE, additional attacks and alerts were reported, pointing to a widening conflict as more Gulf states found themselves dealing with missile interceptions, falling debris, and emergency responses. Saudi Arabia said it intercepted 5 ballistic missiles aimed at its eastern region, underscoring the scale of incoming threats and the intensity of Iran's aerial campaign across the Gulf. In the UAE, authorities responded to fires at the Habshan gas field after debris from an intercepted missile fell on the site, though officials initially stopped short of fully confirming the exact cause of the blaze. Earlier on the evening of April 7th, President Donald Trump had confirmed that a ceasefire had been agreed after more than a month of intense war with Iran. Trump announced a suspension of planned new bombing of Iran once a self-imposed deadline for that same day was reached, framing it as a step toward de-escalation. In response, Iran stated that if attacks against it stopped, it would cease defensive operations, indicating a conditional willingness to halt its own strikes. Trump stressed that the truce was contingent on Iran completely, immediately, safely reopening the Strait of Hormuz, tying the pause in fighting to restored global shipping through the key choke point. Tehran said that for the 2-week period, shipping through the Strait of Hormuz would be possible via coordination with its military, signaling that it intended to keep tight control but allow limited passage. Trump said Iran's 10-point proposal was a workable basis on which to negotiate, describing it as a serious framework for moving toward a broader settlement. He added that almost all of the various points of contention had been agreed between the US and Iran, arguing that only a few outstanding issues remained. According to Trump, the 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated, portraying the ceasefire as a window to lock in a more durable deal. For its part, Iran said its decision was based on a US request to negotiate on a broader 15-point proposal. Iran also emphasized that Washington had accepted Tehran's 10-point draft as a framework for discussions.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that we will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry guards.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.